Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Bhupinder, for a wonderful introduction. These introductions are generally half-truth. It only talks about one side of his story. But the real story about, me is very well connected with the topic today, which is basically, there's no slide deck there. The slide is not there. Let's go. Okay. The topic is power of micro-decision in shaping our lives. I come from a very small village. It is the remotest village of India. We still don't have roads. We just had very recently electricity up there. That's why I grew up. It's the last village of India. It's about 9 kilometers from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir and 100 kilometers towards Srinagar. My father is a farmer. He once invited one of our neighbors, the neighbor who generally doesn't go along well with the neighborhood there. So he invited him for a cup of tea, and that conversation turned out to be a very, very interesting conversation. That cup of tea brought a lot of changes in my life. I was a hockey player playing for the national. I played for nationals for represent state, and this neighbor was very fond of transistors. We did not have televisions there at that time. So he was very fond of listening to Indian hockey, the cricket, and he told my father there's something called national games. We should send this boy to the national games. And that's when in 1988 I played in India nationals for under-19 hockey with that one small opportunity of that neighbor coming home and suggesting my father, this is what should you do. Now today I'm going to talk about the power of micro-decisions in shaping our lives. I can tell you as a normal humans, we take close to about 5,000 decisions in a day. Very surprising. And the first decision, we do it in the morning when we have an alarm at 5 in the morning or 6 in the morning. That's the alarm which happens. And what we do, we just go and snooze it. Right? So that's the first decision which we make in a day. So likewise, a normal human being takes about 5,000 decisions in a day. And now imagine if you're taking those decisions, and those decisions can take you to the different track. And those decisions, if you're not taking, they can to another track. Now, getting up in the morning, going for a walk or a run allows you to come back, you're hungry, you're having good breakfast. You have enough time for you because since you ran, you're having good breakfast, the energy level is very high, and then your entire day turns out to be a completely different. It's just that one small micro decision you took in the morning that you woke up, you made sure that you went and defeated the snooze and went up and had a wonderful walk. That's the power of micro decisions which we take. Normally, we've been taught in our schools, you got to be doing a lot of big things, big changes, big decisions to achieve what you really want to do. To be very honest, with 30 years of experience, worked in 4 continents in the world, I'm coming from an HR background, an alumnus from Wharton School of Business. I have just realized one thing. It is the power of small micro decisions that can change us, the humans, incredibly. Now I'm going to give a small example about, is there something wrong with this? Okay, how many of you know about Tour de France? It's one of the greatest cycling event that happens every year, and it's like it's like a Grand Slam. Now, British team, 1903 onwards, for one full 100 years. If you see before 1903, they were brilliant cyclists in the world. But post 1903, for next 100 years, they just didn't do well. No medals, no successes, no rewards, no awards. They were very, very weak in the global space, whether it is Olympics or the Tour de France. There's one thing which happened in that, in that team, that was called the Sky Team. There's a great case study around the Sky Team. They brought a performance director. I want your attention here. They brought the performance director called Sir Dave Brailsford. He made this concept called, power of aggregation of 1%. Now, what is this power of aggregation of 1%? He's Dave. Now, he taught a very simple concept to the Sky Team, the cycling team of Great Britain. He just made very simple changes. The first change he made it to the cyclists, the team of cyclists who had to go to Tour de France and then go to Olympics also. He made few changes. I can tell you 3-4 changes. He made sure that every cycle the cyclists were having, he made sure that the seat is 1 inch up. One change. The second small decision which he took with that team was he professed all the cyclists that we should more often wash our hands. Because if you wash your hands more often, there's likelihood you will not get sick. The third thing is that every cyclist, wherever we go, we carry our pillow and we carry our mattress along with this. Because if they have your own mattresses and pillows, you're likely to have a good sleep. Another thing which he did, which was very, very interesting, as a one single change, he said all the cyclists of Sky Team were taught how to fold your cycling clothes so that there are no wrinkles. Because when you are wearing the wrinkled, cycling clothes, there's a drift which goes against, and that can reduce your performance of your winning the game. Very small decisions, no big overhauls, no big changes, just small 4 or 5 changes he brought, which was washing your hands properly, carrying your pillows and and your mattresses, and then making sure you fold your clothes nicely so that it's wrinkle free. What was the result? The result was phenomenal. You will be surprised to know that 2003 onwards, for the Olympic in 2003, out of 8 gold Olympics medals in the cycling sports in Olympics in 2003, the Sky Team won 7 Olympic golds, just with this small change. Then in 2008 again, they won another 7 golds, and for next 7 to 8 years, every Tour the cyclist race was won by this particular team called Team Sky, but just doing small changes. The point which I'm trying to drive here is that we have to realize, the 1% improvement, the aggregation of 1% improvement. We have to make sure that we should have an awareness, we should be consistent, and we should make sure that this 1% change consistently, how it can compound to a greater results. Those were basically the compounding effect which I was talking about. But let me give you, the power of this daily 1%, and I'll give some examples. I know all of you are, gearing for the, going for the lunch, and I don't want to come between you and your lunch. Let me give you some stories around, J.K. Rowling, one of the greatest authors from England. She married, and she was divorced with a 1-girl child. She wanted to write, but her situation was very difficult because she had to raise a small child. There were not many financial support coming anywhere. But one thing she did that, she started going to cafes every day and started writing 1 para every day. 1 small para every day. And she did that small decision, the micro decision of writing 1 para every day. But every day, consistently, she'll put her child to the bed and she'll go to the coffee shop. And we know the story of J.K. Rowling, one of the greatest authors ever in the history we have received. The worth of $500 million worth, the equity she has today in the market. J.K. Rowling. Kobe Bryant, American basketball player, came from a very disadvantaged background, didn't have great money, extremely disadvantaged environment he came from, but he followed the rule of 1% of aggregation of doing, basically consistently. He made sure that, very simple change, he said, if my opponent is practicing for 1 hour, I'm going to practice every day for 1 hour, 10 minutes. He would always check into the stadium 10 minutes before, and he will leave the 10 minutes before, 10 minutes later when the people went out. He would make sure that he would record his game and then go back home and look at his video and then see what changes I can bring, and he'll pick up that 1% aggregation rule and bring in that changes, and we know he's one of the greatest players the world has produced. I'm sure these are about the people, but let me talk about some of the events which has happened. I'm sure you know about this leaping movement. How many of you know about leaping movement? Let me give a 30 seconds story around this. Between East Germany and West Germany, there was a wall, and they would fight with each other for resources, for everything. They were the enemies. And no establishment, no government, no superpowers could go and break this. A lot of efforts came from different parts of the world to go how they could unify the East Germans and West Germans. Nothing moved. But what happened? A small, dusty and dusky village called Leaping, it's a village called Leaping. There people started sitting on every Wednesday 1 hour, talking about that wall. How do we do this? And that movement of 1 day, 1 hour, every Wednesday coming together, that caught so much of fire, and it went around the entire Germany. People started sitting on every Wednesday for 1 hour and talking about why we should not have wall. You know the result, my friends? The wall was down. No bomb, no killing, no government. It was the people who came make sure that the West Germans and East Germans live like brothers. And it was a 3 decades, war between the two communities. They're living so peacefully after that. It was just one small decision which decided, one micro decision, that Leaping sit every Wednesday for 1 hour. The last is the Craig Kalberg. I'm a big fan of Craig Kalberg. He's a Canadian citizen. I have met him a couple of times in the United Nations Security Council meetings. He's a very young chap. When he was in school in Toronto, this is when he was 8-9 years old age, he would always walk from his home to his school, not use any cycle or a bus or any other means of transport. He will walk every day. So one fine day when he was walking back from school to his home, he found a bus stand, and he kind of took some rest there and found some newspapers there. And this was his general habit, that he will stop in that bus stand and look for the sports section of newspaper and see what's happening in the football around the world. So Craig found a story on the front page of that newspaper about a boy called Iqbal. One small message, one small story which he read. This boy of Iqbal, the story which is covered on the front pages of Toronto Times, is about a 12-year-old boy Iqbal from the city of Karachi. He was abducted at the age of 6 by the mafia, the begging and the drug mafia from streets of Karachi, and he was taken back to those, and they would make sure that he would be, he'd be begging on the streets, and all the children will go through a tremendous abuse. But this young boy, Craig, he was so smart. When he was inside, he realized that I need to do something. I need to make sure that I need to run away from this mafia. The age of 9, he ran away. He made sure that he ran away successfully. But he had few friends behind. So he decided to go back and free his friends. So he went back, and for next 2 years, the author says he made sure he released little over 300 children more from that mafia. But at the tender age of 12, Iqbal was shot dead on his head with 5 bullets on the streets of Karachi. That was the story on the Toronto Times. That is the story which Craig read. And then he looked at how Iqbal actually handled it. Iqbal he took smaller decisions inside to how does he run away, how he'll help people. And he picked up that story. And today, Craig runs this organization called the Save the Child in 120 countries. He saves about 1 million children every year from the mafia, whether it is India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Australia, wherever in the world he has his organization registered in 120 countries. And when you go and talk to Craig, he said, what is that one learning you want to leave it for all of us? He says, look at what Iqbal did. For him, the inspiration is Iqbal, and Iqbal was taking smaller micro decisions inside. And Craig today is one of the most influential personalities in the world. A story on Craig caliber. So, I mean, there are multiple stories. And when I was driving up here, I found a story about a lady called Rosa. In 1955, 1st December, she was a black woman in America. She got into a bus, sat on a bus seat, which was not open for a black woman to sit. And then there was a lot of fight on the bus because the white man said, that's my seat. The driver said, let me call the police. The lady didn't get up. She said, I'm not going to move out of here. But that protest of Rosa gave a burst to, Martin Luther. Martin Luther picked up that protest of that small one micro decision, and the movement started in Alabama, where people started walking. All the blacks started walking. They didn't use any mode of medium of transport. They started walking to their offices, to their schools, to their homes, that we will not use transport. And that fight eventually became the true civil rights fight in America. And that gave a burst to the legislation of civil rights legislation. And they got the idea of liberty was born out of that bus seat, which that lady took that micro decision. And the rest of the history, we all know how that particular legislation changed the whole, scenario of America. So, I mean, the theme which I'm trying to tell you here, micro decisions, consistency, and the compounding effect. Start picking this up. Take smaller decisions. As I said, we take 5,000 decisions in a single day. You need to have an awareness. You need to be consistent, and you need to focus on compounding. With that, I want to thank you all. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.